Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Jordan. I'm the local food program manager at Sustainable Solano, and I'm also a chef. I had a catering business for about 8 years in Chicago before moving out here in 2011. And so my work right now is primarily teaching a lot of cooking classes and also connecting our communities with our local farmers and the local food that's here in Solano County. So welcome. And I don't know if any of you guys are here. There might be some students joining us from an internship that we are currently doing at Armio High School in Fairfield. So if any of you guys are out there, I can't see you all because there's like a little bar of you at the top. But if any of you students are there, glad to have you here. And this is our class all about kind of like lentils, and we're doing a Mexican lentil soup. So this recipe was actually developed by a colleague of mine named Lisa Núñez-Hancock. Allison, I'm just realizing that I may owe you the recipe. I don't know if you have the recipe yet. So I know all of you guys have the ingredient list, and that's kind of all you need for right now. And we'll make sure that you get the recipe afterwards, and we will also post it to our website. So anyway, as I was saying, this recipe was developed by Lisa Núñez-Hancock. She's one of our fellow chefs who does some cooking demos out in the community as well. And she developed it about, I'd say earlier this year in the spring for a youth internship program that we were having. And I really liked the recipe, and I thought it would be great to do it as a public/teen class because we last did this with a group of teens in the spring. The great thing about lentils is that they don't have to be pre-soaked like a lot of other beans. They cook pretty quick. And she developed this really great, kind of like a chili-inspired type of soup with a lot of great Latin flavors. So we are just going to dive on in. This is one of these like we all cook together types of classes. And so I'm just going to like go through some of the ingredients. We'll make sure we all have everything set up. I'll show you my equipment that I have. And then if you need a minute to gather a couple of things, feel free. Hopefully all your produce is washed already. And then we're going to just kind of start, and we'll go through some knife skills as well as the process for cooking the soup. And then while we're waiting for our lentils to cook, we are going to show a quick video of Lisa, who will give some additional information about lentils and their health benefits and some other fun facts. So, okay, so you guys should have some oil. It could be olive oil. It could also be kind of a neutral oil. I'm going to use an avocado oil today. You could have a vegetable oil or canola oil, whatever you'd like to use. So the olive is also an option, but I do find that, I really like the flavor of olive oil, and it's just going to get lost in this kind of a soup because there's going to be some spices going on. So something more neutral is great. And then we have some aromatics that almost every soup in the world kind of starts with. It could be leeks, it could be onions, sometimes it's shallots, some kind of product from the allium family, which is the onion. So it calls for 1 medium onion. I have kind of a couple smallish ones here, so I'm going to use those. And then we're going to put in a jalapeno pepper if you would like. If you don't want to do the jalapeno, that's fine too. There will be plenty of other flavors and spices in here, but I might throw in maybe half of that jalapeno. I'm going to try to feed this to my kids, so I can't make it too spicy. Then we have a couple of carrots. So a couple of carrots. I have kind of 3 small ones, so I'm going to do these. And then we have some garlic, more of those alliums going into the soup. And then we have some spices. So we're working with coriander seeds today. So I'll kind of come a little bit closer, maybe see if I can show you guys what these look like. So here they are. These are the seeds from a cilantro plant. And so they're dried. They're a little bit bigger than like a cumin seed. They're kind of more round as well. So we're going to use those. And then I also have ground cumin and some chili powder. So I have kind of a basic chili powder that you would use for, like a bean chili, but there's all kinds of other chili powders. I was rummaging through my spice cabinet. I had a ancho chili powder. I have a chipotle chili powder. There's all kinds of powders that you can find at Latin markets and, even in some grocery stores. So we're going to use those spices as well. And of course, the star of the show today are the lentils. So for those of you who are from the class that we're currently teaching, you probably have a little bag of lentils like this. We're going to use green lentils. There are a couple different kinds of green lentils. One is called Dupuis, which is a French green lentil. They tend to be a little bit smaller. These are kind of your standard green lentil from the grocery store, and they'll be a little bit bigger. You can also use a brown lentil. And actually, I'm going to show you some other kinds while we're kind of on the topic here. So these, I'm going to bring these over too. So these are some little green ones that we can probably, hopefully, I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but there's the little green lentils. Oh, it even says it on the bag. Okay, so that's those. There are red lentils, which are used a lot in Indian cooking, but really they're kind of orange. So even though they are called red lentils, they're actually orange, and then they turn more yellow when you cook them. And here's another one I'll show you, and Lisa will talk about these as well. These are the black beluga lentils. So these are like little teeny little round, almost like a little ball type of lentils. And they get their name beluga because they look like beluga caviar, the fish roe. So those are some different kinds, but for today, you can use the brown ones or the green ones, because I think those are going to work best for our soup. One important thing to note about the red lentils, the Indian ones, is that when you cook them, they just totally break down and become mush. They don't hold their shape like the green or the black do. So it's a totally kind of different kind of cooking when you're working with the red lentils. So, all right. You should have a cutting board, a nice sharp knife. I like to use this little scraper thing to scoop up bits of onion. Also, underneath my board, I have like a little shelf liner thing, but you could also put a damp kitchen towel or a damp paper towel underneath just to keep this from sliding around. So that's nice and sturdy. All right. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to cut up our carrots, our onions, and our jalapeno. And we can put all of that into a bowl together because we're going to add it into the soup at the same time. So we'll do a little knife skills bit here with the onion. So there's the top of the onion, and then there's the bottom, which is the root. And we're going to first cut off the top. And I have a little compost bucket over here. You can see it kind of a little bit on a bar stool. So I'm going to put my scraps over there. I'm just going to barely shave off the root end as well, but we don't want to cut too much of the root off because that's going to hold everything together. All right. And now I'm going to cut this in half from like top to bottom. And you want to go through the root so that you have a little bit of root on each side of your onion here. Okay. Now I have a corner that I can peel. I'm going to grab the corners and take that outer layer of papery skin off of my onion. And by the way, if I'm going too fast or if you guys have any questions, Allison is here with me kind of on the back end, keeping track of all the chats because I see things pop up, but I cannot read them from over here where I am. So just, raise a hand, send a chat message, whatever you need to do. And I'll slow down or I'll speed up or we'll do whatever to keep everybody on track. All right, I just had a little dirt on that one. Okay, so I'm going to scoot my board just a hair forward so you guys can maybe see a little bit better. All right. So we want to have this kind of diced up. And so here's one way that you can cut your onion. If this doesn't feel safe, then we'll review a different way. But traditionally, we would cut it maybe once or twice this way. And what you're doing is we're not going to go all the way through. So the root's over here, and the root's going to hold all these layers together. So I go just that far, and I'm going to pull my knife out. Okay. And these are small onions, so I'm just going to do one of those cuts. Then I'm going to turn it so the root's on top. And you guys can always come back and watch this little bit, if you need a review. And then I'm going to go down through the onion. But again, I'm going all the way down to the cutting board, but I'm not going all the way through to the root. So it's still holding together here. It's still in its little half onion piece here. Okay, then I'm going to turn it back to my original position. So the root is on the left. And then I'm going to go down and make another roughly same size cut as I just did. And if you do that, the same size in all these little directions, then you'll have evenly diced up onion. When you get to the bottom, this is very not safe. It's like kind of not very stable. So you want to just put it down with the flat side down to the board. and then keep on trimming up around there. Okay, and then I just have a little tiny bit of root, which I'm gonna put in my compost bucket. Okay, and if there's always a few pieces that maybe didn't quite make it, you can come through and give that a little chop chop. Okay, so these don't have to be super tiny, but just keep in mind this is a soup, so we want to be able to fit these pieces on a spoon. So, you know, I'd say these are probably like, I don't know, 1/2 inch pieces of onion here. Okay, so that was half of my first one. And if you guys have larger onions, you might already be done with your onion by now, but I'm gonna just go through that again. You guys can just keep watching if you want. So I'll cut there and cut down. Ooh, these are starting to make my eyes water. And then I'm going straight down. And then it starts to feel wobbly. I flip it down, trim it up. Okay. My goodness. I'm going to do this like quickly so I'm not crying all over my cutting board. Okay, I have one more to do. So here we go again. Top, shave the root just a little bit. If your root is full of dirt, you can totally scrub it up before. And then straight through with a little bit of root on each side. And then we peel. Oh, that flew off. Sometimes these peelings kind of stick. Okay, there's the first one. Oh my goodness. I'm gonna have to like grab a tissue in a minute here. Never fails. Shallots make me cry even worse than onions. And the reason we cry, we can do a little food science here. The reason we cry over the onions is that there's little cells inside the onion that hold gases. And when you cut into it, it breaks those open. And then that's, you know, goes into your eyes and makes you cry. So, all right. So the best thing to do is just have a sharp knife and be quick. But I've heard it all. I've heard people say, put the onion in the fridge or the freezer. I've heard put a cracker in your mouth. You know, I think the thing that does work are these onion goggles. You can put on like swim goggles or something, because it's about protecting your eyes. All right, I'm on my last half here. Okay. All right, I'm gonna put that over there and I'm gonna rinse this off. Whew, goodness. All right. Okay, how did everybody do with the onion? All good? We move on. You guys can give me a thumbs up if you're got your onion done and we're ready. I'm gonna get a tissue while you're either finishing your onion or looking at your onion, or maybe getting your onion away from your face. Okay, I feel better already. It's getting away from the cut onion pieces. I'm going to move them somewhere else too. I'm going to put them over here. Let's get them away. Okay, next is our carrots. Oh, let me just pause. Did anybody have any questions? Everybody ready to move on? We're good? We're good. Okay, cool. All right, carrots. So carrots have a pretty thin skin. You know, we're all kind of trying to avoid getting food waste into the landfill these days. There's a law out there called SB 1383, and what they found is that food waste going into the landfill is creating a lot of methane and it's contributing to the climate problem. So the goal these days is to keep food bits out of the landfill. Ideally, you can get your food to people, then animals, and then to a digester that'll turn it into energy, and then the compost, and then worst case scenario, the landfill. So what we're going to ask ourselves on our carrots is, do we really need to peel them? Because that just makes more food waste, which might go into my compost bucket, but the skin has some nutrients in it because that's the part that's, you know, in contact with the ground and all those minerals and things that might be in the soil. So if you don't need to peel, maybe you just need to scrub brush it a little bit. This is an OXO brush. I love this little thing. I use it on oysters. I use it on vegetables. It has like little plasticky, I don't know if it's silicone. I'm not sure what the bristles are, but it's designed so I can just throw it in my dishwasher and then I can use it on oysters one week and vegetables the next. So I went ahead and just kind of pre-scrubbed my carrots a little bit. This one has a big crack down the middle, so I will need to kind of see if there's some dirt in there. But if you need to peel, feel free to peel. The only reason I might peel is if, you know, there was a lot of kind of dirt stuck into the carrot. And here's, I just exposed that little strip there. So I'm just gonna tidy that up a bit because that did need a little removal. Okay, that looks pretty good. Or if there's any kind of, you know, weird looking spots, you know, you can cut those off, or if they're right at the surface, you could peel those off as well. So, and again, these carrots are kind of tiny, so I'm using 3 of them, but you guys might only have 2. There's one other little spot that I couldn't get off with the brush. All right. So we'll do a little bit of knife skill review while we're doing our carrots. So you may have noticed I made like a little bridge with my hand like this when I was on top of the roly-poly carrot. So I kind of did this and held it and then went down and carefully cut the whole thing in half. If you have a really long carrot, it'd be great to cut your carrot in half crosswise first and then lengthwise. And then you want to position your hand on here, and this might be review for some of you that have been to my classes before. So you have your thumb and finger on the blade right in front of this middle piece called the bolster. So your thumb and finger are right here on the blade, and then your other 3 fingers go around the handle. All right. So then your other hand, depending on what hand you use, in my case, it's my left hand. I'm going to kind of make it like a little crab, like this, and on top of my food. So then as I'm slicing, my left hand and my knuckles might hit the blade, but I'm going to keep myself from chopping off my fingertips. All right. So again, this is soup. We want things to fit on a spoon. I'm going to actually cut my carrot lengthwise one more time. So I've basically quartered my carrot pieces. Okay. And now we're just going to kind of cut forward and drag the tip back and work our way down the carrot, making some little dice. So I'm going to turn this way so you guys can see this motion. Okay, here I am. So I'm cutting forward, picking it up and dragging the tip back. Okay, cutting forward, dragging the tip back. Slice forward, drag back. Slice forward, drag back. And then meanwhile, my left hand is doing this little walk on the beach thing. So this takes a lot of practice. If you haven't done it before, you just want to sit there and practice this motion. But what you'll see is that the tip of my knife is not leaving the board. So I'm slicing forward, dragging it back, slicing forward, drag it back. It's a lot of people do this and they cut toward themselves, and it's a lot more efficient to cut away. All right. So we'll carry on with our carrots. Just get these cut up into little small dice. And because these are going to go in with the onions, we'll just put them together in the same bowl as the onions. Hopefully that'll be far enough away from me right now. Okay. So let me do the other parts here. I'm going to quarter. The size that you should have might be similar to like what you see in a frozen bag of like that peas, carrots, corn mixture, or it could be a little larger. That's fine too. But we just want to get it kind of cut down so that it cooks evenly. So the goal is for all of your carrot pieces to look somewhat similar. These carrots were in my fridge for a while. They have a couple little issues here. All right. So by having all these pieces cut about the same size, then it's going to cook evenly, which is what we want to have in our saute. So the soup, I just mentioned the word saute. So soups generally start with the sauteing process, which is like to, mix things and cook things in some oil on fairly high heat. And that's where our soup is going to start, and that's where we're going to build some flavor. All right. All right, so how's it going with the carrots, everybody? Give me a thumbs up if you're done with your carrots, or if you need more time, just let us know. All right. All right, all good? Should we move on to our friend, the jalapeno? Okay. So the spicy stuff, the heat level in peppers lives in the seeds and the membranes of your pepper. So I'm going to cut off just the little top stem, and then I'm going to cut it lengthwise. So I've got my two halves that look like this. And you can see that white part in there, those are the membranes, and you'll probably see some seeds as well. So if I don't want to have as much of that spice, then I'm going to cut it in half again, so it's quartered. And I'm just going to take my knife and kind of shave out that white membrane part. And I'm not going to get all of it, and that's okay. But I'm going to try to get most of it. And if there's a couple seeds that don't quite make it out, that's okay too. It just depends on how picky you are about your spice level. Okay. So I think I'm just going to do half of my jalapeno, actually. So it's up to you guys if you want to do the whole one. If you are super into spicy food, then just chop that whole thing up. Seeds, membranes, the flesh of the pepper, the whole shebang. So whatever you want to do. So now for me, what I'm going to do is cut these halves into some little tiny strips. So I kind of have these little tiny bits like this. So that just kind of gets it started. And then I'm going to pile them up like little boards all parallel to each other. And then I'm going to go across and cut it again. So it's broken down almost to a mince. Okay. And I'll do my other one, other half. Okay. And if you want it to be a little smaller, you could bunch it up. And then here's another way to cut food, different from the first way that I just showed you. So when you have a pile of things and you want to get it even more minced, and we'll do this again with the garlic, you want to have all of your fingers around the handle. And then I'm going to put my palm on this part of the blade, and I'm just going to rock it back and forth, up and down like this. And that'll help to mince up my peppers a little bit smaller. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, let's see. That'll go in with the carrots and the onions. All right. So if you're not used to working with peppers, you might feel a little stinging or burning on your skin if you're very sensitive. It'll just feel like your finger got a little sunburn, and it'll go away after a few minutes. So don't panic if that's what you're feeling. But I think I'm immune at this point. I don't think I don't even feel that anymore. So but that's a possibility. Also, don't touch your eyes, don't touch your ears, don't touch your nose, especially your eyes though, because you did just touch a jalapeno. Go wash your hands if you need to. Clean off your board if you want. So because it will kind of transfer to other things that we're cooking today. All right. Now we're going to move on to our spices, because this is kind of, well, you know what? Let's do the garlic. Sorry, guys. I'm going to change my mind here. So since we have our board here and we're doing stuff with the cutting board, let's move on to our garlic. So we're going to need about 5 cloves of garlic. This is a head of garlic, this whole thing. So not 5 of those. We just need 5 of the little sections that make up the head of garlic. And those are the cloves. So I've got kind of a mishmash of things here. I have an older head of garlic with a few left. So I'm going to pull, I've got 3 there. Let's see if I can get this last one. The root is kind of holding all of it together. Okay, 1, 2, I have a bunch of little ones here. So these little half ones, I'd say is the equivalent of 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I like garlic. I'm going to add extra. So if you want to add like 8, I don't care, you know, whatever. This is where you can kind of customize it. You know, this is what I like about doing soups and things like this, and as opposed to baking and pastry where you have to be super technical and measure everything. So I'm going to add a couple more cloves of garlic from this head. I just need to get it pulled off. Okay, that one feels a little squishy. That one's better. This one over here is good. Okay, so your garlic cloves should be nice and hard, almost like a little rock. If they're kind of squishy, then they might be kind of going bad. All right, so to get the little papery skins off, what we do is we put the clove down, and then you can use something like your scraper, or you can use something like a measuring cup like this. This is pretty easy to use, and you just give it a little whack like that, and that will start to break the papers off. And then you're going to shave off the little root end that was holding it all down at the bottom. And then once you do that, it'll just pop right out, and you don't have to be sitting there trying to, you know, get all the little pieces and off with your fingers. It's much easier this way. And here's where my scraper comes in handy to kind of scoop up little bits of the garlic papers. So garlic clove on the board, and then give it a little whack, and then trim off the root, and then take off the paper. So that's what I'm going to be doing here with this little pile of garlic. And then once we get all of the papers off, then we'll kind of bunch it together and chop it up. Garlic is really good for you this time of year, by the way. It's got some antiviral properties. I had somebody I knew used to, she said that whenever she felt like a cold coming on, she would just eat a clove of garlic raw and then try to chase it with a little bit of honey or something to get the taste out. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I could do that, but maybe. There are like garlic tablets and pills I think you can get to, but it is helpful for fighting off viruses. Okay. Almost. Oh, that one doesn't look so good. All right, I have one more clove here. Okay, so here's my pile of garlic cloves. I think I ended up with about 7 of them. And I'm going to just bunch them together here on my board. And then just kind of carefully start breaking them down. They can sometimes fly off of your board because they are kind of round. And sometimes when you hit them the wrong direction, they just take on a life of their own. Okay, so now once I have a little pile of chopped, this you want to kind of cut down into a mince. So I would say a mince is like, I don't know, 1/8 of an inch square-ish, like think of 1/8 of an inch cube or something like that. So it doesn't, obviously we're not going for exact measurements here, but you just want to go and do your chopping motion with your knife like this, and just go back and forth over your pile of garlic until you get it fairly small. And here I had a little piece escape, so I'm going to get that in here. So again, the object is to have, you know, as evenly sized pieces as possible. And garlic is kind of sticky, so your hands, you might need to kind of stop and, you know, wipe off your knife a little bit. Your hands might need a little rinse when we're done with this. All right, keep going here. So our garlic is not going to go in at the same time as our carrots and onions. So we're going to put that in another little small bowl and just set it aside. Okay, I think I've got my pile of garlic where I want it here. I'm going to grab a little prep bowl over here. All right, here's where the scraper is handy. You can get all that into a bowl. These are called pastry scrapers or bench scrapers sometimes, and you can get them just about anywhere. You know, places like the Target might even have them. I don't know, Bed Bath & Beyond. I don't even know if they still have stores anymore, but or Amazon. You know, we all love Amazon. So, all right. So that's the garlic, and I need to rinse my sticky hands. And I think I'm gonna wipe off my board a little bit because there's garlic sticky all over. Okay. Now let's get to our spices. Let me just see here if I got everything set. Spices. Okay. Yep. So once we get the spices ready to go, then I think we can probably start cooking. All right. So we have our coriander seeds and the chili powder and the cumin. So what we're going to do is we're going to grind up the coriander seeds just so that they have a really nice fresh flavor. So if you have something that's a mortar and pestle, this is the mortar part, this is the pestle part. I lost my pestle, so I'm using actually a juicer. It's like a little wooden juicer thing for limes. So we're just going to grind it up inside here. So we need, let's see here, I don't know this off the top of my head, 1 teaspoon of the coriander seeds. Okay, so you're going to find your measuring spoons, and we're just going to do a level teaspoon of the coriander seeds into the mortar bowl. You might see some little stems in there. You can just take those out if you want. Let's see. Okay, so yep, once these go in here, we're going to grind them down. So you just kind of take your pestle and just kind of push and make a little circular motion. Mine are kind of flying out of the thing here. So they're down there at the bottom, and we're just grinding it up, basically. If you don't have a mortar and pestle, you can put these in a little, I'll give you some alternatives. You can use a Ziploc bag or some plastic wrap. I'll just put a little bit of plastic wrap down. Or parchment paper, anything like this. The goal is just for it to kind of keep it from scattering everywhere. So I'll put a few more in here. And then I'm going to fold this over so that my seeds are inside here. And then you can use something like your measuring cup to just push it down. Or if you have a meat mallet, you guys have something like this that's used for like tenderizing. You want to use the flat side. You can give it a little pound. Okay, that'll do the job. Let's see, I was just thinking of something else. Oh, a rolling pin. If you guys have a rolling pin, I have one of these things. So you could also roll over it. It's still kind of sandwiched into the plastic wrap. You can just go over it like this, and that'll kind of break it down too. So there's multiple ways that you can do this. You know, the goal is just to kind of crush your coriander seeds down. Okay. They don't have to be a super fine powder. They won't be a super fine powder because the shells are gonna, still hold some of their shape. But we want to get it crushed down pretty significantly, as much as you can. But if I just go around a few times with this, it'll make it happen. And then what you'll probably start to do is you're going to smell this aroma from the coriander. It's going to be very fragrant, because these are freshly ground. And I'll show you about the level of, what should I say? The level of crushed, I don't know, that I have here. Okay. It's not a super fine powder, but it's getting there. So let me grab another couple bowls. Actually, you might be able to see it in here. I don't know. No, maybe not. Let me put it in here. So it's a little bit powdery, but still I can see pieces of the shell. You know what it reminds me of? It looks like wheat germ. You guys ever seen that? Or what else does this look like? Kind of like sawdust, I guess. Doesn't sound very appetizing, but in terms of the size, that's what it's looking like to me. It's like a little bit of like a sawdust that's in here. So, okay, so that's our coriander. And now we're just going to add the other 2 spices to our ground coriander, which is the chili powder and the cumin. So we're going to do 2 teaspoons of the chili powder. And that goes right into a bowl with the coriander. Okay. And then our ground cumin, you can add anywhere from a half teaspoon to a full teaspoon, up to you guys. The cumin is kind of your traditional, taco seasoning type of flavor. You're going to recognize it. So I'm just going to do a half, because the thing is, depending on what kind of chorizo you guys got, that will also have a lot of these same seasonings. So you might want to, cut back a little bit, or you can, if you really love the flavor, then go ahead and add the full amount. So, okay. Let's see. And then we did the garlic already. Okay. And then we have we'll do our lentils and get our chorizo ready once we start cooking, because we'll need a few minutes to saute. All right, let's start cooking things. So I have an induction burner here. I'm going to go ahead and start this. If you have a regular, electric oven or gas range or whatever, go ahead and start heating up your pan. So you want to have this on like medium high. We're going to heat the pan, which will open the pores of the pan, and then we're going to add our oil, and that'll keep things from sticking too much. So we're going to add about a couple tablespoons of oil. You can measure it or you can just eyeball it. I'm just going to eyeball it. So I'm going to wait for this to heat up a little bit. And then the order of events will be our carrot, onion, jalapeno mixture. And then we're going to add in our spices and our garlic. Okay. And then we will add our chorizo in, and that's what's really going to start to build the flavor in the soup. So for right now, we'll start with our the aromatics here with the onion, carrots, and while that's cooking, we'll get our chorizo ready. And what I mean by ready is we're really just opening up a package, hopefully. So I have a couple kinds of spoons I'm using. I just wanted to show you guys. So one that's like this, it has a little bit of a flat edge, is kind of handy when you need to scrape brown bits off the bottom of the pan, which is probably going to be the case for today. This is actually a left-handed one. That's funny. I have ended up with a couple different versions of those. So I'm going to use this one. There's going to be these brown bits that get stuck on the bottom of the pan, which is really what helps to build our flavor. It's called fond, F-O-N-D. And when we add our stock, that is all going to release and go into our soup and add all the yummy flavor. So, all right, so here we go. So you should be heating up your oil. And then in goes our carrots, onions, and hopefully you hear a little sizzle. That means your pan is hot. Here. All right, we're gonna mix this around. Okay, so this will take a little bit of time. So while that's doing its thing, we're just gonna stir occasionally. Keep your lid handy or a piece of foil if you don't have a lid for your pan. That also works fine. Or even another pan. You can put a pan on top of the pan, or like a sheet pan. This is kind of a little restaurant trick. If you don't have a lid or can't find your lid, you can do that, and that kind of works just as well too. So if you have something like a sheet pan, well, maybe a pizza pan, that's round, that might work also. All right. So give this a stir once in a while, but otherwise we can kind of just get out our other ingredients. I'm gonna grab my chorizo. I found a soy chorizo at the store, like this. What is it? El Burrito is the brand. And this is about 12 ounces. So, which is kind of the higher end of it. I'm gonna grab another bowl. And I'm just gonna kind of get this squeezed out of this wrapper so that's easier to deal with when it comes time to add it to the soup. Here's my scissors. Okay. Because once I get it out of the plastic, I'm noticing that there's like another layer of packaging and some little metal ends here that I need to take off. So trim that. All right. I just realized an important ingredient that I had not pulled out of my cabinet, which is the salt and the pepper. So grab yourself salt and black pepper. Let's add a pinch of salt to the saute. And maybe just a little bit of black pepper, but you don't have to do too much pepper because there's going to be a lot of other peppery seasonings going on here with the chili powder and stuff. Okay. So this chorizo is just in a big tube. This is a soy chorizo. It's going to taste very similar to the pork one. And if you have the pork one, that's fine too. Okay. So what you might be noticing in your soup pot here is that your onions are going from white to a more translucent color. That's good. And also your carrots might be turning a brighter orange. That means it's all doing what it's supposed to do. Let me throw this away. All right. And again, just give it a little stir once in a while. If you have some browning going on, that's okay too. But mine is not browning yet, but it is. My onions are definitely looking more see-through and less kind of white. All right. What was the other thing we needed to round up here? Oh, the lentils, of course. Okay. So we need about 2.5 cups of lentils. So I'm going to just measure those also into a bowl so that they're ready to put into the pan. I'm going to kind of line things up in the order that they're going to go in. Do that over there for right now. Oh yeah, here's my measuring spoon, measuring cup. Okay, so 2.5 cups. So you want to just measure this out so that it's level to the top. Oh, this is, oh, perfect. Well, for those of you that got one of these little bags, whoever might be joining us in the class, this bag is exactly the amount you need. So that's fortunate. Now, sometimes we need to look at the lentils and kind of pick through them and just make sure there aren't any little rocks or debris or anything. So one way you can do that is to spread them out on a sheet pan. I'm noticing that this little bag of lentils says to rinse them. So that's fine, we can do that. So I'm gonna find a little colander, like a little strainer thing for mine. What I like to do if I need to pick through them and just look at them is get out like a cookie sheet thing, dump them out here, kind of spread them all out. And then you can kind of see more easily if there's any issues. So just gonna give it a little, turn my heat down just a tad. All right, that's all good. Sometimes you'll find other types of lentils. Like here's a little green French lentil mixed in with the other ones. It can stay there, that's fine. But you know, once in a while you might find a little dirt clod or a little rock or something. These look pretty good, but feel free to do a little quick inspection while you're waiting for your saute to happen. Okay, I think mine looks okay. But since my little bag said to rinse, we'll go ahead and do that. So I'm going to put them in this little strainer. All right. All right, we're about ready to add the next thing to our saute. So have ready your spices and your garlic. So I'm just going to give this a quick rinse. Let that drain. Okay, so next going in are the spices and the garlic. And so this is where you want to be ready to stir, because this is going to go, it's going to look like it's going to stick to the pan. And so you just want to keep moving it around. So before we do that, we'll just kind of give you the rundown. So it's going to be spices and garlic. And then the chorizo is going to go in, and that also has more spices. So, and then we're going to be adding the broth. So you should have 2 quarts of chicken broth or vegetable broth, or stock, whatever you want to use. Okay, and then once we add the liquid, that's going to release everything from the bottom of the pan. It'll unstick everything. Okay, so here we go. Spices are going to go in. Garlic's going to go in. And we want to give that a stir, and we're only going to let this cook for about 30 seconds to a minute. You're going to smell all of a sudden all of that spice. And those dry spices need this heat to kind of bring out all of their oils and flavors. I need a little more oil in my pan. I don't know. If it starts to look a little dry, feel free to add another tablespoon of oil. There should be a lot of sizzling going on here. Okay, now we're going to put in the chorizo. So whatever kind of chorizo you're using, that's going to go in. And we're going to stir that around now. So if you're using a raw meat product, you might need to let this cook a little bit longer than what you know, the soy chorizo would need, obviously, because the soy is already basically a cooked thing. Okay. So we just want to kind of keep mixing this around for a little bit because we don't want those little bits of spices to burn. But I don't know about you guys, but mine is definitely sticking to the bottom of the pan. I'm going to show you what this looks like here. I don't know if you can see this. So the part that's up here, see, I'm scraping this down. This is all stuff stuck to the bottom of the pan. And that's okay. That's where all flavor is. You can kind of now see where the rest of the vegetables are and the chorizo. So this is stuck, which is great. So that's the flavor. Okay. My induction burner is beeping at me here. Okay. So back to the stirring. So I'm just going to mix this around. We're going to give it like maybe another minute or two. If you have the excuse me, raw, it might need to cook a little longer. You want the color should change to go from like, you know, pink to brown or cooked. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And the other thing that's happening is the spices are darkening. So not only are they sticking, but they should also be darkening, but not burning. So a kind of a nice, rich terracotta brown color is fine, but we don't want it to turn black. Okay. All right. So that looks good to me. So next is our broth. So now we'll go ahead and put in both of the both quarts of your stock. And I'm going to crank this thing up to high. You'll want to turn your heat up to high as well, because we want to bring this to a boil. And here's where we're going to need our lids, because the lid is going to help to bring it to the boil. Also, once you add your liquid, go ahead and stir the bottom, and you should be noticing that those little brown bits that were stuck to the bottom of the pan are now releasing. So this is going to help pull all that flavor off of the pan and into your soup. So I'm just going to kind of, like I'm mowing the grass. I'm just going back and forth in the pan here, kind of collecting the little brown bits until it feels kind of smooth on the bottom of my pan. Okay, there it is. All right, let's put the lids on, or foil, or whatever you need to do. And while we're waiting for this to boil, we have a couple little videos to show you. One is Lisa. Actually, they're both Lisa, but the first one, let's do, actually, Allison, let's do the shorter one right now. What time is it? Yeah, let's do the shorter one on heirlooms. She's going to talk a little bit about like what heirloom really means, because sometimes we see that term, because it probably won't take super long for our stock to boil.
Hi, so we've been talking about lentils, and I have some black lentils, some brown lentils, and some green lentils. And the black lentils came from a co-op, and the brown lentils came from a grocery store. But the green lentils are heirloom lentils. And so I wanted to talk a little bit today about what does heirloom mean? So once upon a time, before the industrialization of food around 1950, all vegetables and fruits were heirlooms. An heirloom food is a plant, vegetable or fruit, that was commonly grown during an earlier period in human history, but which is not used in modern large-scale agriculture. So when you go to the grocery store, you might find 2 or 3 kinds of tomatoes for sale, but believe it or not, there are hundreds of varieties of tomatoes, apples, carrots, lettuces. But most agricultural systems only grow a few kinds. So that's all that's available in our grocery stores. And it really doesn't give us an idea of the beautiful variety of plants and fruits and vegetables that nature produces. So commercial growers only produce a few types that they know they can sell, that look uniform, that tend to bruise less, and they believe have longer shelf lives. For example, there are more than 40,000 varieties of beans in the world. However, only a small percentage of beans are produced for mass consumption. So when you buy your produce from the grocery store, you are limiting your choices of all the amazing variations of fruits and vegetables and legumes and settling for someone's idea of what a tomato should look like and taste like, and not what nature has created. Heirloom fruits and vegetables are grown from saved seeds passed down through the generations. And often the plants are indigenous to a particular part of the world. A more complicated definition is that heirloom fruits and vegetables are open pollinated plants, meaning they are pollinated by wind, bird, and insects. Heirloom vegetables and fruits also taste better. You won't believe your taste buds when you eat a ripe heirloom fruit. Pest resistance is also another factor. The genetics of heirloom plants often means they're resistant to local pests, diseases, and weather extremes, which means farmers don't need to use toxic chemicals to control farm conditions, and therefore heirlooms are healthier. So next time you go with your family to buy fruits and vegetables, try going to your farmer's market or try getting a CSA box from your local farmers.
All right, so check your pots. Let's see if anything's boiling. Mine's a little slow. It's not quite there, but I see small bubbles, which means it's simmering, so it's almost there. So we want big, kind of big rolling bubbles to be happening. And then we'll add our lentils. So your lentils should kind of be just on hold here. While we're waiting, or while I'm waiting for my soup to boil, I just want to kind of review briefly some of the toppings that you might be using for your soup. I have some avocado, which is going to be really yummy. Also some cilantro. So I just wanted to kind of show you really quick how I keep my cilantro to keep it fresh. So this came, actually, Lisa was talking about a CSA box. So I do subscribe to a community supported agriculture program from a couple different farms. One is called Terra Firma, Terra. We have these resources on our website, by the way, sustainablesolano.org. So Terra Firma is one, and then another one is called Eat Well Farm. I know that Eat Well delivers to all cities in Solano County, and Terra Firma delivers to Vacaville and also to Benicia. And hopefully they'll get some more sites soon. So my cilantro is in a little jar of water, and I have it in here just like I would put in like some fresh cut flowers. And then I just took the bag that the cilantro was in and I stuck it over the top loosely. I don't need to like rubber band this or anything. It just kind of sits like this, and then it goes into my fridge. And I tend to keep it on the door of my refrigerator. It doesn't have to be in the coldest spot. In fact, the herbs do better when they're in maybe one of the warmer spots of your fridge, which might be the top or the bottom, depending on where your freezer is. It's like at some point you probably have realized, oh, this thing that I had in my fridge froze, right? Usually at least on my refrigerator, toward the back is where things will freeze if I leave it there. So the cilantro will stay like this in the fridge until I'm ready to use it. Ideally, this is a little bit, not wet on top because the leaves sometimes don't like to be wet. And so when I'm ready to use it, then I'll take it out of its little vase of water here. And I'm just going to twist the bottoms off. And then I'm going to put this into like a really big bowl of water. So here I've got it in this big giant bowl, and I'm just going to add some cold water. And I'm going to move it around, kind of slosh it around in here. Cilantro can sometimes have a lot of dirt. So you want to have ample amounts of water with your cilantro. And this also would be the same procedure for parsley, basil. I would also do this way, any kind of herbs, really, oregano, anything that's kind of leafy. This is also how I wash all my salad greens. So if I get a bag of spinach or arugula or whatever. All right, so it's got a bunch of water in here, and I'm just kind of going through here and lifting it and dropping it and moving it around. So what happens is the dirt will sink to the bottom and the leaves will float on top, and they've got their stems with them too. So I'm just going to let that sit there for a second, because then the next thing I want to do in order to get the water off of it is run it through my salad spinner. And if you don't have a salad spinner, no worries. You can just roll it up in a kitchen towel, but I tend to use this thing like almost every week. But this time of year, there's lots of salad. So I'm just going to pull these off the top and drop them in here. And then I'm going to spin them dry. And this is obviously more than what I need, but I'm planning to make some guacamole, I think, later this week. So I'm just going to wash it all up. What you could also do if you just need a little bit is just take what you need off of the bunch and leave the rest in that little jar of water and put it right back into your fridge. This is the watched pot that never boils over here on in my kitchen right now. So I'm going to spin this. And that'll just whiz all the water off of the greens. And then I also like to just kind of put it out on a towel and let it dry a little bit more. And then I'll layer it with some paper towels and put it in the refrigerator until I am ready to use it. So, but typically the herbs like to be, kept in their little like vase jar of water until you're ready to use them. So dump off the water. All right, so that's the story on the cilantro. Let me move this gargantuan thing of water. Okay, does anybody have any questions so far? I just wanted to make sure, and I'm about ready to boil here.
I have one. So I just now put in, I sauteed the vegetables and I put in the garlic and the seasonings into it. So right now, what are we doing now? Like I just now put the garlic in there about like a minute ago.
Okay, perfect. So garlic and seasonings, what's happening is your seasonings might be sticking to the bottom of your pan a little bit, and that's fine. So now you're going to add your chorizo and stir that around for a couple of minutes, maybe a little longer if you have raw chorizo. After that, go ahead.
Which one is the chorizo inside of the bag you gave us?
I don't think we had chorizo in the bag. No,
okay.
I think that was just for you guys to purchase on your own. You can also leave it out. Not a big deal because there's plenty of spice going on. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you don't have it, then I would say your next step is to, after the garlic and the spices, you will just add your stock, the chicken stock or the veggie stock, whatever we gave you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you add your liquid, that's going to release those little brown bits from the bottom of the pan.
Okay. We haven't added in the lentils yet, correct?
Not yet, but very soon. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
You're welcome. So my soup is finally coming to a boil here. So Paris, after you get the liquids in there, then you're going to cover your pan and let it come to a boil. And that's when we're going to add the lentils. So I'm now finally ready to add lentils to my soup. Some of you guys might already have lentils in there. So once it boils, then in go our lentils. And then according to, some lentils are sprouted, which means they're going to take a little bit less time to cook. But pretty much your average or your standard time for cooking lentils is about like 20 to 30 minutes, depending on the size, the shape, and whether they're sprouted or not. So I have a feeling mine are going to take about half an hour. So the lentils go in, and then we can reduce it. Yeah, we're going to turn the heat down a little bit. If it comes back to a boil quickly, that's fine. But we just don't want to have it at a really strong rolling boil because it might boil over if your lid flips on all the way. I'm just gonna crack the lid just a tad on the top, and then I'm just gonna turn my heat down a little bit so it's like simmering. So you want to see some little bubbles coming up, but it doesn't have to be like the rolling boil. Does that make sense? Okay. All right. So now, while we're waiting for lentils to cook, we have another video by Lisa. It's about 5 or 6 minutes long. So we're going to show that, and she'll give you some more information about lentils, as well as some fun facts and nutrition information too.
Hi, my name is Lisa Núñez-Hancock, and I'm a culinary arts instructor and natural food chef. And today I'm going to talk a little bit about lentils. Both lentils and beans are part of a nutrient-rich legume family. Lentils and beans are renowned for their high levels of protein and vital nutrients. And these vegetables can be used in place of meat or as an added protein supplement to almost any meal. In many cultures around the world and cuisines, both lentils and beans are considered dietary staples. So there are a lot of different varieties of lentils. They come in an impressive array of colors, shapes, sizes, textures, and flavors. And lentils are a part of many culinary traditions around the world. So today I have a selection of different types of lentils. We have the brown lentil, which is the most common, and it is used in cooking traditions in the United States and in Latin America, also in Italy. We also have the green lentil. These are from France, and they are also known as the Dupuis lentil. And these are really wonderful in salads because they hold together well. Another type of lentil is the black lentil or the beluga. And the reason that they're called beluga is they resemble caviar when they're cooked. And these are grown in the cool climates of Canada and America's northern plains. There are also another varieties of lentils, which I don't have today, but those are the red. Oftentimes they look more the color of orange, and yellow lentils. And these are lentils that are very common in Indian cuisine, also known as dal. The lentils are called dal. And those lentils do not hold their shape as well, and they will break down and become more mushy, and they're good for making curries and sauces. So lentils are delicious and nutritious, and they're an inexpensive source of protein. They're packed with fiber, protein, and carbohydrates. And the black ones that I showed you, the beluga, are high in antioxidants. The other great thing about lentils is they cook a lot faster than beans, so you're using less gas, less electricity when you're cooking lentils. But lentils don't qualify as a complete protein, and that's because they're missing a few amino acids. And these amino acids can be found in grains, nuts, and seeds. And so those things can be added to your lentil dishes to create a complete protein. So here are some facts about lentils. When you go to the grocery store, you're going to find the lentils in the same aisle as the beans. Also, historians estimate that humans began cultivating lentils as a nutritious, valuable food source as early as 8000 BC in what is now northern Syria. Also, lentils are a delicious staple that stood the test of time, and is most of the lentils in the world today are grown in Canada and then in India. And something that I find really, really important is that recently the United Nations has made pulses, legumes, which include lentils, in they've been doing research to solve world hunger. And so that's something that I think would be really interesting to explore, what the UN is doing with regard to stopping world hunger with the use of beans, legumes, lentils. And lastly, I want to talk about lentils' history and traditions, which I find kind of interesting and funny. Lentils, or lenticchie in Italian, are believed to bring good luck and prosperity in Italy. Eating them on New Year's Eve, shortly after midnight, is a tradition that's said to date back to ancient Rome. This is also common in other Eastern European countries in Europe. And to wish friends luck and prosperity on New Year's Eve, ancient Romans would give little pouches full of lentils as gifts. So it's believed that eating as many lentils as you can on New Year's symbolizes abundance, prosperity, because the little discs resemble Roman coins. So I hope you enjoy making your lentil recipe, and have a wonderful holiday.
Thank you, Lisa. I'll send her a thank you note later. So yeah, I was doing some other research about the health benefits of lentils, and what I found is that lentils and also kale have a lot of what are called micronutrients. And so our bodies need different kinds of nutrients. There's the macronutrients, which are things like protein, carbohydrates, and fat. And then the micronutrients are the things like the vitamins and minerals. And so the lentils have a lot of those micronutrients, and also products like kale, leafy greens would have a lot of that as well. So just something to keep in mind, that sometimes our bodies need to have a lot more than what we might just get in like starches, like, rice and potatoes. And you need a lot of colorful things. So, think about all the colors that the vegetables come in. Right now there's a lot of orange vegetables with the winter squash and the persimmons and the little mandarins. So chances are those have some kind of vitamin or mineral that our bodies need right now, because that's what's growing right now. So anyway, just keep that in mind, that, all of these different vegetables and legumes have great nutrients for our bodies to help kind of get us through the winter and see us to the spring, hopefully without too many colds and flus and all of that. So, all right. So you guys should have some simmering soup out there. You do want to stir this occasionally, because the lentils and the chorizo and all those other good things will kind of sink to the bottom of your pan. So you just want to move it around once in a while. This will probably take about another 15 to 20 minutes. And so we're not necessarily going to just, stay on for that whole time. But I can just kind of review really quick the rest of the toppings. And then I think I'll just let you guys kind of, enjoy your soup. But actually, one thing I did want to mention. So I'm going to pull a couple out, even though I know they're not done. I'm going to taste one right now, because I do want to kind of try to explain what you're looking for. Like, how do you know that when these are done, right? So I'm just going to grab a little tablespoon or so and put it in my little dish here. Okay. I need to get a normal spoon. So again, I'm using these green lentils, and you don't want them to be crunchy, okay? Right now, I can bite through them, but they're still pretty firm, and they have a little bit, I don't know what's called a bite to them. It's kind of hard to explain, and I do get a little bit of a crunch when I bite down. So I would say these are like halfway done, maybe. I'm going to put these back in the pot and let them keep cooking. So you want your lentils to be soft, but not so soft to the point where they're just like falling apart and turning to mush. So I would encourage you to just kind of, we'll keep tasting every 5-10 minutes or so. so that you can kind of start to see the difference as they cook. The same kind of texture thing would apply whether I'm using the green lentils depuis or the black beluga lentils. Again, the only kind of lentil that doesn't really fall into that category are the orange ones that's used in Indian cooking, because those pretty quickly just break down and become mush, but that's kind of their job. You know, they just sort of integrate into the sauce and they sort of become a sauce. After you cook them, they look like hummus. You know, if you guys ever had like a, you know, mixed chickpea hummus, that's what they end up looking like. So, so we'll just let that sit there. Okay, really quick, I just want to kind of show you what I normally do for the cilantro. Cilantro stems have a lot of flavor, so I'm not going to worry too much about the, you know, halfway up, the really firm, the thicker stems at the bottom, you might want to take off, but the little tender stems at the top, I just leave those on. And I'm just going to make a little pile of the leaves and the tender stems here. And then I'm just going to chop all that up. And we're not going to do it very fine. This is kind of a rough chop. I kind of want it to be a little more chunky as my topping. So once I make my pile of leaves, it's kind of the same idea that we did with the garlic. I just want to bunch it up. I kind of fold it over. Take my knife and I'm going to start the same way that I did like with the carrots and stuff. And then once it's broken down a little bit, I'm going to change the position of my hand and just chop this way. And just a little couple rounds. And, you know, this is optional. You can always just put the leaves on top of your soup too. But if you want to chop them up a little bit, I just wanted to show you that step. Okay. All right. Avocados. Here's my avocado. And sometimes I assume people know how to cut up avocados, but one time I had a woman in a class who worked for a hand surgeon, and she was like, oh, I see what's going on now. When I started to cut the avocado, she's like, people come in with injuries and they say they do it cutting an avocado. So be very careful. So I just cut around it and then twist it open. And then I have my pit inside. You can keep the pit if you're going to mash it up. But here's where, actually I didn't do this step. Here's where you want to be really careful. Some people have the pit in here and then they take their knife and they go in and whack the pit like this to pull the pit out. You know, mine came out right away, but this is, I think, where people get injured. So be super careful. You can just use a spoon. You don't have to use a knife to get the pit out of your avocado. And then we can just scoop out the inside parts. Add it to this little bowl here. So, and then I've got some nice avocado to put on top of my finished soup, as well as some cilantro. Another great addition would be like some kind of Mexican cheese, like some cotija or some other kind of like, you know, whatever you might put on a taco, whatever you enjoy on a taco. You can do all kinds of different kinds of cheese. You can do the kind of the shredded one that's like 3 colors. It's got a little bit of like, I don't know, Monterey Jack and cheddar and something else. Or you can do like the cotija cheese, which is like the crumbly cheese. Also, some kind of crema or sour cream is a great addition to this soup, especially if it is spicy. Those milk products will kind of help tone down the spice level. Oh, lime wedges. That's the last thing. So for your limes, to do the wedges, you've got kind of these little ends of the limes. I usually trim those off. And then you can stand it up. And then you can just cut it down the middle and then into your little wedges that way. And you can just leave these in a little wedge and then they can just be, you know, squeezed on top of your soup. So, all right. So that's it for my little topping show and tell. I'm going to just check my soup one last time. And then I think I will probably say farewell unless you guys have any questions. Feel free to unmute yourself or send the question to Allison in the chat. Maybe I should see if there's questions in the chat. That might be a good idea.
There are not questions in the chat right now.
Okay, sounds good. So let me dish up a little bit of my soup. I know it's not there yet. just show you the color from all these yummy spices. So it's going to be kind of orangish. You guys can see this. Kind of a weird angle. Yeah. So it's very orange, partly from the carrots, partly from the spices. I don't know. It's kind of a weird color on that camera, but it smells really good. And so just keep testing your lentils as you go. You can kind of take a peek too and just see if they're starting to fall apart. And if they are, then you might be close to being done. But I just want to taste from time to time. And then once they're tender, you are done and ready to have dinner. So, okay. I think that's it. If there are no other questions, I will say goodnight and enjoy your lentil soup.